Hello, my name is Camille, and today I'm going to be talking about my study abroad experience in Italy and how it connects to the Mediterranean diet, specifically in chapter 26. I'll be combining what I learned in class with what I actually experienced while being there. Here's a quick overview of what I'll be covering in this presentation. This covers my study abroad experience, what I noticed about food and lifestyle, how that connects to the Mediterranean diet, and then I'll focus on chapter 26 from the textbook. For my study abroad trip, I went to Italy. The cities I visited were Rome, Tuscany, Florence, and Venice. This was part of the Health and Lifestyle Italy Spring 2026 FAU faculty led program, and I stayed for 8 days. Even though it was a short trip, I was able to experience a lot, especially when it came to food and daily habits. Each city had a slightly different vibe, but one thing that stayed consistent was the food quality and overall lifestyle. We were also walking a lot every day, which I believe played a role in how we experienced the food and overall lifestyle. My first impression of the food in Italy was that everything tasted really fresh and simple, which made the meal simple but still have a lot of flavor. You could tell the ingredients were high quality, which they were, and the natural flavors stood out way more in my taste buds compared to what I'm used to in the US. Even simple dishes like pasta or bread tasted different, and I believe that's because of how fresh the ingredients were compared to what we usually get in the US. I also noticed that the meals didn't rely on a lot of added sauces or artificial flavors, which made everything taste more natural. Some major differences I noticed compared to the US was that the food was less processed and more fresh. The portions were smaller, but still really filling. People also walked a lot more throughout the day, and the meals were eaten at a slower, more intentional pace, rather than being rushed. I also noticed people weren't eating on the go as much. Meals felt more intentional and social, which I believe plays a role in overall health. In the US, I feel like meals are more rushed and sometimes more about convenience, whereas in Italy, it felt more intentional. From my personal experience, I actually felt more energized while I was there. I didn't experience any heartburn or discomfort after eating, and the meals kept me full, even with the smaller portions. I did notice some occasional bloating or gas, which I think could be caused by the high fiber intake. I believe this shows how diet quality can directly affect how you feel day to day, not just long term health. Even though I was eating things like pasta and bread, I still felt better overall, which was surprising to me since I was used to the aftermath of American foods. Something I also found interesting was that I tried McDonald's while I was in Rome, and my body still didn't react negatively. I had spicy chicken nuggets and fries, but I didn't feel the same discomfort I usually would in the US. I think this could be due to differences in ingredients, food quality, or how processed the food is. Even though it's technically fast food, it still felt different compared to what I'm used to. Chapter 26 focuses on the Mediterranean diet and how it's linked to obesity, specifically in Italy. One of the main ideas is that people who follow this diet more closely tend to have a lower risk of obesity and better overall health. The diet is based on whole, minimally processed foods such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, olive oil, and moderate amounts of protein. But something important the chapter points out is that it's not just about individual foods, it's about the overall pattern of eating. So it's really about how everything works together and what you're doing consistently over time. The chapter also mentioned that adherence to this diet has decreased over time, which is likely linked to rising obesity rates. One thing I found really interesting is that the chapter explains how different components of the Mediterranean diet work together to support health. For example, high intake of fruits and vegetables is linked to a lower risk of obesity, and healthy fats like olive oil are associated with better weight management and heart health. It also mentioned that people who follow the Mediterranean diet tend to have lower body weight, lower BMI, and less fat accumulation over time. So it's not just short term benefits, it actually helps long term. So instead of focusing on one nutrient, the Mediterranean diet works because all these components work together. This shows that it's not about restriction, but about balance and quality of food choices. These findings relate to what I experienced while being in Italy. When I compare this chapter to my experience in Italy, it actually makes a lot of sense. The chapter talks about how whole, less processed foods and balanced meals help with weight management and digestion, which is something I personally noticed. I felt more energized and my digestion felt better overall. It also explains that the high fiber intake can increase fullness but may cause some gas, which I experienced too. So even small things I noticed match what was discussed in the chapter. This shows that the Mediterranean diet isn't just theoretical. It's something I actually experienced in real life. This made me realize that what we learned about the Mediterranean diet in class actually applies in real life. It also made me realize that small changes, such as eating less processed foods, can make a noticeable difference. Experiences like this made me realize that food quality and perception can have a big impact, even when eating similar types of food. My main takeaway is that the Mediterranean diet is more than just food. It's really a lifestyle. It emphasizes balance, moderation, and fresh ingredients. Also, daily habits like walking and eating slower also play a big role in overall health. It's something that could be realistically applied to everyday life, even outside of Italy. It's something that can be adapted into different cultures, not just the Mediterranean cultures. Overall, this experience gave me a new perspective on nutrition. I was able to see a real life application of what we learned in class, and it showed me how important lifestyle and cultural habits are when it comes to health. This study abroad trip definitely had a lasting impact on how I view food and nutrition. It definitely changed how I think about food choices moving forward. It helped me better understand the connection between diet and overall well-being. Something this experience made me realize is that health isn't just about what you eat, but how you eat and the environment around it. In Italy, meals felt more intentional and less rushed, which I think plays a role in digestion and overall well being. It also showed me that you don't have to completely restrict certain foods to be healthy. It's more about balance, quality, and consistency over time. This is something I definitely want to carry it into my own lifestyle moving forward. Another thing this experience showed me is that the Mediterranean diet isn't restrictive. It's actually very balanced and sustainable. People are still enjoying foods like pasta and bread, but the quality and the portion sizes make a difference. It made me realize that health isn't about cutting out foods completely, but about making better overall choices consistently. And here are my references. Thank you.